wiped his tears and drove straight to the office. "Good morning, boss," Bishop, trustworthy and Anne greeted as he entered the assistant's office. He ignored them and looked at Amaka's desk, but it was all empty. He wore a sad countenance until Bishop said, "Amaka is in your office, sir. She has been in for some minutes now." And this to Michael was a good news. He said, "Thank you and good morning all." He rushed to his office and true to Bishop's words, he saw her waiting there dressed corporately for work, looking so blank and empty. Michael walked up to her, not taking his eyes away from her for once. He was just 2 steps to get to her when she suddenly undid her shirt buttons, making him stop. His eyes were fixed on her, wondering what was going on, until she took off her shirt. Her tummy was full of redness as a result of the punches she received, and Michael could feel the soreness. He asked slowly, "How did this happen?" "I was kidnapped last night by John, your rival. I actually got the intel from his men. And coincidentally, he is my ex, the one who ruined me without pity. I was beaten like crazy, and that's why my face and tummy is like this. And I am sorry. I am so sorry for slapping you last night. I was confused, devastated, and at the same time saying that God is partial for allowing John to still live, not just living, but has a company and doing well for himself after all he did to me." Michael closed her mouth. "Shh! God is just. God is righteous. God is never partial. Don't you ever think like that. He is fully aware of what he did, and as the referee of every one of us here on earth, he knows the perfect time to issue out a red card, and you don't have to say sorry. I am the fool for forcefully kissing you despite your condition. Just tell me what you want and consider it done." Amaka grabbed the opportunity. She said, "I want to make John regret everything. I want him to kneel and beg in front of me. I want him and Mercy to lose everything they have ever worked for. I want them to suffer, and Amara too, your ex. I want her to eat pains till she's overfed." And Michael nodded thrice, signifying it is done. He said with tears brimming in his eyes, "You can count on me. I will do everything you want." "Don't cry," Amaka said, and that made the tears to fall quickly. "I am so sorry. I never knew you went through hell hotter than mine back then. I am sorry for everything I said and how badly I treated you. If you are not satisfied with the slap you gave me yesterday, please slap me again and again." "No, I won't do that. It wasn't your fault too. We both experienced hell," Amaka replied, wiping his tears with the back of her hands. "Listen, I will only do what you want from now on. I promise you," Michael said, looking into her eyes. "Prove it to me, baby daddy," Amaka said, and he smiled tearfully, pulling her into a comforting hug. It lasted for almost 5 minutes, both taking time to relish in the scent of each other. They found so much solace and peace in each other, and when they finally broke the hug, they could visibly see the relief in each other's eyes. Michael's tears were totally gone. He smiled widely before picking her shirt from where it fell. "I can wear it myself," Amaka quickly said, knowing what he was going to do next. "No, allow me do my thing," he replied. He was staring into her eyes as he did her buttons, and she was smiling. Eh, the cigarette and alcohol, he suddenly said. What about them? Hope you didn't go back to buy another one last night. And Amaka shook her head. No, I didn't. I wasn't thinking when I went out to buy them. Seeing John alive and well again really messed with my head, and I nearly went crazy. I am thankful I met you last night, she said, and he smiled doing the last button of the shirt. I am declaring today a work-free day. Why? We have a lot to do, Amaka replied. Why, you ask? And the answer is, making you happy comes first. But I'm happy, Amaka said, blinking, and he couldn't help but laugh. On a more serious note, you don't have to declare a work-free day. My darling, I have to. Look at your tummy. We need to get it treated, Michael replied, pulling her out of the office. Bishop and Trustworthy stood from their desk, grinding ear to ear when they saw them, and Anne stood slowly too, biting her finger. Michael took Amaka to the announcement room, and she quickly blocked his way when they got in. You really don't have to declare. He suddenly leaned in and she stepped back quickly. Good, he smiled and went to the address system. Listen up, staff. I am declaring a work-free day today for everyone, and a loud scream filled the company immediately. Michael continued, but tomorrow, prepare to walk past the working hours. Have a nice day, everyone. He finished up the announcement and faced Amaka. Dawn, he winked. Stubborn baby daddy, she said. And Michael grinned, holding her again. This time, he interlocked their fingers and he took her out of the room. The head of staff saw how his boss admired her, and he needed no prophet to tell him that his boss was madly in love. He advised himself. He said, before my case will be like that of Haman, who prepared the gallons for Mordecai and was later hung on those gallons, I better take a U-turn. He quickly went to the restroom, tore the sack later into pieces, and then flushed. Michael took Amaka to his private spark, opened the car door for her to enter like a queen. He got him to, opened the car safe, brought out a diary and gave it to her. What for? She asked. And he said, it is a list of everything you need to know about Shem, including his likes and dislikes. I took my time to write it all. I promised him that his mom will be introduced to him in 1 week, and you need to see how excited he is for the introduction. Amaka, please don't say no this time. I am ready, she cut him off. And Michael smiled, holding her right hand, rubbing her knuckles gently. Amaka opened the book and started reading, and he drove them out of the park. In John's company, he loosened his tie and threw it down when he got back to his office. Another fruitless meeting just ended with the staff, and he was as pissed as hell. The new land contract is trending in the news, but no one knows which land it is going to be, and none of his staffs had the slightest idea, so he was on the edge. And worse still, he can't even fire staffs because he's owing them a month's salary. The company has been broke, and it got worse immediately Michael got the intel instead of him. He hit his head. I must meet Michael tomorrow, and if I will treat him to partner with me, I will do it. Michael drove Amaka straight to the hospital, and they spent close to an hour. When they were done, they went for a long drive. That is the main deal. Talking with your partner during a long drive section with no particular destination in mind. They went to eat in a restaurant, and after 30 minutes, they embarked on another journey. Where are we going again? Amaka asked. A secret place, Michael replied. 10 minutes later, he drove into Glam Fashion and she blinked. Your mom's store? Yes, my mom's store. Michael's mom stood immediately they came in and hugged Amaka warmly. Thank you, son, for bringing her here. She turned to Amaka and said, I have a whole lot of dresses for you, and I bet you are going to need an extra car to pack them, she said jokingly. Please, ma, you don't have to, Amaka replied. Take her to the fitting room, son. An attendant will bring the dresses. We need to make John regret everything, and part of it is building a new Amaka and making him feel like having her back. I want her to dress differently to work from now on, so consider it my first gift to you. Amaka knelt down to appreciate her. The tension was too much and her nervousness was visible. Michael quickly said to her, choose a number from 1 to 20, just to make sure she feels relaxed. Why? Amaka questioned. Just choose, please. Okay, I will choose my date of birth. Number 12. Michael brought out his phone immediately and did the transaction. Her phone buzzed and she brought it out, checked the new message, and her eyes widened like crazy when she saw a credit alert of 12 million naira from him. Oh my God! She shouted, swallowing hard in disbelief. Michael, I am not. I don't know you. She was short of words as she stared at her phone screen. And when she looked up at him, she caught him smiling at her. Michael, she whispered, and he smiled wider. You deserve more, Mama, and I'm only just starting. Just don't get tired. We have a very long way to go. Amaka began to cry. She said, I am sorry, Lord. You are not partial. Your ways are far higher than our ways. 12 million naira just like that? She hugged Michael without holding back a smile. Michael said to her, okay, for the first time today, I saw you smile genuinely and I am so happy right now. I will keep doing things like this. I will keep making you smile and keep doubling up the baby girl treatment till you call me silly for spoiling you. Yes, that's the right word for it. I want to spoil you so much that I will feel the weight on my bank account. Two attendants came in with the dresses in 3 movable hangers, and Amaka wanted to jump, but Michael stopped her. You will hurt yourself, he said. Wait, all these are mine? Yes, darling, Michael's mom replied, coming in last. But I can't. Please, ma, it is too much for just one person. You own everything, my daughter. And if you refuse, I will get hurt. Amaka opened her mouth to say another word, but found herself hugging Michael's mom. Thank you so much, ma. You are just like my mother. She would even spend her last card just to get me as many dresses as possible when I was a kid. Where is she now? Michael's mom asked. She is dead, ma. She slipped and fell from the stairs while cleaning at her workplace, Amaka replied. Michael's mom didn't know when she shouted, Jesus! What about your dad? He is gone too. He died of HBP, and Michael's mom's face fell immediately. Oh dear, it must have been so hard for you. You are strong. Allow me to be your mother and Michael your father, as in father. Amaka smiled and said, "Thank you, ma, for being a sweet person. I love you." And she hugged her again. It is a hugging day. Michael was just watching silently. He's aware that her parents are dead, according to a biography she submitted at ML. But he wasn't aware of the kind of death. He instantly became much more determined to make her happy. "Shall we check out the dresses?" Michael's mom asked. Amaka smiled, turning to Michael. He shrunk slightly and eventually left the room to wait at the receiving room. Amaka started trying out the clothes one by one, coming out to show him each time she changes. "Wow! Perfect! You were hot, gorgeous, alluring, cute, beautiful. This and many more were his comments. She tried out almost 30 dresses, having fun changing them till she got tired and crashed on a chair beside Michael in the receiving room. And Michael got her a cold drink. Amaka was so grateful because that was the right medicine for her condition. She said, "Thank you, baby daddy." And he smiled. Hearing that from her presses his excitement button. It was already so dark when they left the store. The dresses filled up 3 big bars. Amaka couldn't stop smiling throughout the drive, but Michael was lost in thoughts. She noticed his face and cleared her throat just to bring him back, but it didn't work. "Michael," she called, and he looked at her. "Hmm? What is it?" she asked. "Don't kill me, oh, now that God had decided to butter my bread and sugar my tea. How can you be in deep thought and driving at the same time?" And Michael replied, "I was just thinking, I never knew your parents passed like that. Will you show me their pictures someday?" "Sure," Amaka replied and asked, "but what about your dad? I heard his name was Lansing." "Yes, he was Lansing, a heavy drunk who would drink anything drinkable just to get high," he replied. "Seriously?" "Yes, but despite that, he loved I and mom so much. The taxi I drove back then, he bought it for me, and my mom's store was once a one-room building. He was the one who built it too. He was a hard-working man, and mom loved him more, and that's why she's still not able to move on till now. Sadly, he died in his drunk state." Amaka could feel the pain in his voice as he spoke. "I am sorry," she said. "It's fine, Mama. I have happy moments of him too, just like you had of your parents. So it's all good," he smiled. He pulled up in front of her house 5 minutes later and took the bags out of the trunk. Almost immediately, a taxi pulled up and 3 attendants from the store came out. "Madam sent us to take the bags in for you," they said. "Oh, she's so sweet," Amaka said gratefully, and they carried the bags into the house. "Tomorrow then," Amaka said to Michael, and he said, "Sure, Mama, but what's on your cheek? Let me help you." He pecked her as there was nothing on her cheek. That was his scope. And Amaka said good night so fast and rushed in quickly. Michael entered his car and zoomed off. Surprisingly, Brian was waiting with Precious in the living room. "Mommy!" Precious ran to her and she carried her, giving her a forehead kiss. "You came late and you didn't tell me earlier," Precious said. "I am so sorry, my daughter. I knew you were in safe hands and that's why I was calm," Amaka replied. "You are right, Mom. Uncle Brian bought ice cream for I and his niece, and he cooked my favorite coconut rice and also bought plenty things for me," Precious said non-stop. And Amaka thanked Brian as she faced him. He said, "I was wondering the owner of the 3 bags as they were brought in. They are all mine?" And don't worry, you will know the secret behind them soon. Brian simply said, okay, oh, and he bid them a good night. Opeyemi wasn't around again, and it's always a sweet home when it's out. The next day, Amaka got dressed for work, putting one of the dresses from yesterday. She was looking different and confident. When she came out of her house, a car suddenly pulled up and Amaka recognized it as one of Michael's cars immediately. The driver came out and bowed for her. He said, "Boss ordered me to drive it to work," and Amaka started blushing. "He didn't have to now," she muttered. The driver opened the door for her. She stepped in and the car drove off. When they entered the company's private park, Amaka stepped out stylishly, catwalking on her heels. As she entered the company, she earned the attention of everyone, and shoo talk started flying around. Who is that? Mrs. Amaka Opeyemi? How did she transform overnight? I love her gown. How did she do this? I want her heels. She is so cute. But won't boss complain? She's overdressed. Did you two see them at the anniversary? I think there is something going on. I don't think so. Boss and her? Everyone paused just to look at her, running their mouths without comments. Knowing the chaos she was causing, Amaka smiled before entering the elevator. They couldn't stop staring till they got to the upper floor, where she came out and stepped into her office in style. "This can't be Amaka now," Bishop said, and before he knew it, Trustworthy shouted, "The only baby mama of Michael Lawson." "Wow!" Bishop exclaimed and clapped. "Do I look that pretty?" Amaka asked, dropping her bag on her desk. "Just look around," Trustworthy said, and she turned to see several staffs standing by the glass wall of the office staring at her. "I guess I am really pretty," she smiled confidently. "You are not only pretty, you are extra pretty. And please continue dressing this way," Bishop said. Anne came in. She stood by the door and was unable to come closer. She started coughing, but Amaka ignored her completely because she knew nothing was wrong with her apart from jealousy. And she asked, "Is boss in already?" "Sure." Since 7, Bishop responded, and she went to his office instantly. She met him working on some documents already, and he was so invested that he didn't even look up. "Yes?" "Who is it?" he asked. "Your baby mama," she replied, and he looked up immediately. "Damn," he remarked. Amaka smiled and began walking to him. Michael stood from his desk and met her halfway. They hugged themselves and he greeted, "Good morning, dear. Did you enjoy your sleep? Hope Opeyemi didn't act crazy. He rarely sleeps or stays at home, so my night was long and good," she replied. "Okay, sit. I have a good news. I am going to start dealing with John very soon." And Amaka was surprised and she asked, "How?" "Well, his company is currently suffering, so I'm expecting him to reach out for partnership, and I will make him borrow loans just like you did to him, and everything will boom. Trust me, that will be the start of his pains," he replied. His telephone rang almost immediately on his desk. "Just a moment," he said, going for it. "Mr. John is here," the chief security at the entrance reported, and he hung up. "Go and make some tea." "Not the usual type," he said to Amaka. "Okay, boss," she replied and walked out of the office. He was staring at her back till she was out, and he put his hands on his head and said, "Chai! Shame! Your mother is trying to kill me, oh." She's messing with my brain. Immediately, there was a knock on the door. Trustworthy came in and said, Mr. John is. Let him in, he interrupted, and Trustworthy left with a bow. John came in almost immediately with two of his thugs in suits behind him. It is not a good sign to receive my enemy as an early morning visitor, Michael said, and John smiled. I decided to bury the hatchet and come have a talk with you. Have your seat then? Though there was nothing to bury before, Michael said. Well, I am willing to let go of the past rivalry, Michael, John replied, taking his seat on the couch, and his two thugs stood behind him. Their exchange of words was interrupted when Amaka brought in the cup of tea on a tray. John's eyes widened beyond their sockets. Immediately he saw her, and Amaka intensified her catwalks as she walked to the table and dropped the semi-hot cup of tea. She knowingly made it so hot with boiling water. She dropped it in front of John, and he swallowed emptiness as he stared. Michael sat back on his chair, awaiting the climax. John picked the cup of tea to drink, and Amaka turned her back to start leaving. Immediately he saw her back, the cup missed his mouth and the hot tea poured on his trousers. Then the show started. Jeez! He screamed out as his under got hit by the stinging hotness. He sprang up and began to dance around the office, screaming madly as he tried to pull off his trousers. My teen is on fire! Help me! He finally succeeded in taking off the trousers and his underpants at the same time, shamelessly revealing his ruler. Cold air from the air conditioners hit it and he breathed out in relief. But then he remembered he was actually in an office. He turned to see Amaka, who was busy saying in her mind, Very, very what? Very good. And Michael staring speechlessly at him, even his two guards. At the door of the office were Trustworthy, Bishop and Anne, all staring. Trustworthy, are you seeing what I am seeing? Bishop asked. Yes, so 4 inches, Trustworthy shouted, and everyone started laughing mockingly. Bishop was the worst because he was rolling on the ground and tears came out of his eyes as he laughed so hard. Trustworthy had to lean on the door frame of the office so he wouldn't fall like Bishop. Amaka kept in her laughter. She was just looking at John with a satisfactory smile on her face. John got over the shock eventually and quickly put up his trousers, bolting his belt hurriedly, though he was still in pain. What are you all looking at? He shouted at the laughing staffs, and that only made Bishop laugh more on the ground. Anne was the first to leave, and Trustworthy had to drag Bishop away since he was not ready to stop laughing. Why would you make tea that hot? He faced Amaka, who has a glaring expression on her face at that moment. And why are you not replying? Are you now dumb or something? He shouted and made to go closer to her. If you go anywhere near her, you won't be able to walk out of this office with your own legs, Michael said calmly from his seat. You see? When Job said in Job 31 verse 1, I have made a covenant with my eyes not to look lustfully at a young woman. These were the kind of things he escaped. If you weren't looking lustfully, you wouldn't have been in this mess. John faced him and said, Are you being serious right now? She knowingly made that tea hot. You should punish her, he shouted. Yes, maybe punish her for not making it hot enough, Michael replied, finally looking up at him with a smirk. What? John gasped and Amaka walked out of the office. Did you just take her side? I'm about to become your business partner. You shouldn't be doing this, John shouted, and Michael stood up, walking 2 steps to him. John's talks came closer too, and Michael said, "You are in my company, and it will take not less than 2 minutes to trash you and your talks, so you should know what to say and what not." He said this with a dangerous eyes roll, making John release a light breath. "Fine, let's get back to business," he said, and made to walk back to his seat. But after taking 3 steps, the sting under his trouser came madly again, and he had to hold the spot. One would think he's got a diapers on as he walked the remaining distance. He settled on the couch, and his dog stepped far away from them. "So do you have any idea of the new land?" he asked. "Of course. Reliable sources told me it's going to be Jumbo District," Michael replied tactfully, and John was shocked. "Honestly, I thought about it, but I brushed it off because I heard the district is halted and residents left there completely. No one is ready to buy," he said quickly. "The houses will be demolished and the government will be building a city hospital over there," Michael replied, bringing out some documents. He handed the document over to John, and he smiled as he read through. Michael sat back, waiting patiently for him to fall into the trap. "It is going for 2 billion?" John asked, looking at him. "Yes. As of 2 years ago, it was 14 billion. But after the residents left, the price dropped. If we get it right now, we will sell it as 16 billion to the government," Michael explained. "So the deal is 50-50, right? I gather 1 billion and you add 1 billion too," John said impatiently. "Yes, it is." Michael hasn't finished talking when he sprang up and rushed out of the office. His dogs rushed after him. Michael rested calmly and Amaka came back in. "He's gone." He was rushing out. "What's up?" "I told you." "He fell for it," Michael replied, and Amaka smiled. Mercy, on her part, was in a salon, a place she shares with 5 partners, though they have their different spots. The other 5 were busy working on their customers, but she's got none at that moment. They do touch-up, hairstyling, makeup, manicure, and so on. She's the least patronized person in the building because of her bad temper. She kept hissing, rolling her eyes jealously at the others who were working. And then John suddenly came and she squeezed her face immediately. "What the hell are you doing here?" He pulled her up, taking her out of the building. "I asked you, what are you doing here?" She broke free when they got out. "We have a new deal. You know the land I told you about? I am partnering with Michael Lawson on it, and I need 1 billion, he said. "What? So are you going to sell your organs to get it? You are owing your staffs a month's salary, John." "Okay. I took 800 million naira loan from the bank already, and I added the 100 million in my account," he said. "What a risk. Are you normal at all?" Mercy asked. "Please, I am left with 100 million and that's why I'm here. Please lend it to me." "Are you blind? The other stylists are working. But what did you see when you came inside to drag me? My spot is empty, no single customer since morning. I have been begging you for money since 2 weeks ago, and you think I have 100 million? Listen, Mercy, this deal is 16 billion and I will spoil you real bad after I get my share of 8. So just get lost, John." Mercy cut him off and started going in. Mercy, wait! Mercy! He ran after her. In ML Company, as planned, the staff stayed at work past the working hours. It was 8 p.m. and they were only just getting out of work. It was already pitch dark as Michael walked to the private park with Amaka beside him. He opened the car door and Amaka said to him, "You should start letting me open car doors by myself." "Nah, my darling, that's not allowed whenever I'm beside you," he replied. They finally got in together and the driver who drove her in the morning appeared, getting in the front. "Is he new?" she asked. "Yes, I got him because of you. So I am thinking you should come to my place first. I want to cook for you." "You can cook?" she asked. "Well, I am not a chef, so I am trying." "What about my shame?" Amaka asked. "He will come home late tonight, let's say around 10 p.m. He is with Grandma." "Okay, fine." "You will come?" Michael asked, and she nodded twice. "Yes!" he screamed happily, and she laughed before getting her phone. She began to play Candy Crush, and Michael started bringing his head to her shoulder. But thinking of how she would react made him hesitate. He was about to sit straight when Amaka held him back and brought his head to her shoulder gently. They arrived his mansion 10 minutes past 8. Michael held her hand again and led her to the door. He pressed the password right in front of her, and she smiled secretly when she saw it was Shem's date of birth. The door got opened automatically and they stepped in at once, only to meet darkness. No single light was on. "What's going on?" Michael asked himself. He got his phone from his pocket and Amaka got hers from her bag. They looked up at the same time to put their flashlights, but their heads mistakenly hit on each other, making the phones fall on the ground. "Ouch!" Amaka winced, rubbing her head. "Are you okay?" Michael asked, even though his head was hot too. "I am fine," she replied, and he started rubbing her head with his thumb. "I am sorry," he whispered. "Don't be. It's not your fault that the lights are off." And he continued the thumb rub while she stared at him. The lights from their falling phones were still on, so they could see each other's faces, and their shadows were bold on the wall. One thing led to another, and their chemistry sparked up. He quickly carried her to the dining table, and Amaka asked calmly, "Is this the food you want to cook for me?" Michael was breathing hard, ready to devour when the lights suddenly came on. They were shocked. They turned back at the same time to see, guess who? The small but mighty Shem. He was sitting on the middle couch with a bowl of popcorn beside him. He crossed his legs and said, "Please continue." The shock on their faces seeped deeper. Amaka swallowed hard, feeling embarrassed as Michael gently helped her down from the table. Immediately her feet touched the ground, Shem stood up from the couch. "You said you were going to Grandma's place," Michael asked carefully. "I don't want to talk to you, Dad." Shem shot and threw the popcorn bowl away. The popcorn scattered on the floor and he ran upstairs. "What have we done? I never wanted him to find out this way. This is going to hurt him so bad," Amaka said fearfully, and Michael gave her an assuring stroke on her hair. "He will be fine." He noticed he left his phone on the couch, so he went for it, and he was shocked when he saw the message he was about sending to him. "Dad, I think I am sick. My mouth is bitter and I am running a slightly high temperature." He quickly turned to Amaka and said, "Please go home and rest. I will cook for you some other time." I should go home when Shem is mad about what he saw? No, Michael, I can't. Don't you trust me? He will come around. I will handle him. Just go home and relax. Then we can talk about this tomorrow. And she nodded. He led her out of the house and Amaka asked, "Are you really sure he will be fine? I can't just. Please listen to me this once. Stop worrying, my darling. He will be fine," he said, taking off his suit. He covered her with it and opened the car door for her. She got in and the driver rushed over. "Drive slowly. No mistakes," he told him. "Yes, sir." The man bowed shortly and got in with her, driving out of the mansion. Michael sighed, feeling slightly relieved. At least she's unaware of Shem's sickness. That will save her from worrying too much. He went back in and climbed the stairs straight. He opened the door to Shem's room and found him sitting on the bed crying slowly. "Shem?" he called, rushing to the bed. But before he could get to him, Shem was already out of the bed. He said in tears, "You promised to introduce me to my mom this week, but you were just 1 second away to breaking my mother's heart with Mrs. Smart. What do you want my mom to think when she arrives? I hate when you get close to other women, Dad, and doing that with Mrs. Smart will only make me hate her." "Shem, listen. I need to get you to the hospital for checkup right now before the illness eats deeper into your system," Michael replied. "I don't care if it eats me completely. Dad, you have changed and you now lie. I was so proud of my dad, but I'm not sure of that again. You told me there is nothing going on between you two. You said you don't like her, but you kissed her and you were so in love with her that you didn't even notice I was sitting right there in the living room. Who kisses a woman they don't like? You lied to me, Dad, and I hate it. I don't want to see you." He cried again, and when Michael tried to hold him, he pushed him away, though it was not possible because Michael captured him. He made to take him out of the room forcefully, but he cried louder. "Leave me alone, Dad. I don't want to go to the hospital till you bring my mom and cut your relationship with Mrs. Smart. Drop me!" he screamed, throwing his legs stubbornly. He was so strong that he almost fell from Michael's grip, but Michael eventually dropped him where he sensed it won't go well with force. Shem went back to bed in tears and lay down covering himself completely with a thick duvet. Michael sighed and watched him for over 5 minutes. He could hear his sobs from under the duvet and he felt so bad for making him cry that way. He eventually left the room to go clean up the mess in the living room. Amaka on her part got home with Precious. She went to pick her up from Brian. Surprisingly, she heard a familiar voice. "Best friend!" She stopped on her spot immediately. She wasn't expecting to see Mercy at all. "Gosh, I missed you, Amaka. You have become more beautiful. Is that your child? She's so cute." Mercy continued talking like telephone without wire. Skeptically, Amaka dropped Precious, who was busy wondering who Mercy is. "Come give me a hug. I really miss you." Mercy widened her arms. Amaka started walking to Mercy, whose arms are still wide, and at each step she took, the scene became clearer and clearer in her memory. The proposal scene. The clearer it got, the more refined her fury became, and when she took the 7th step, she stopped and scoffed. "Judas Iscariot!" And she ran the remaining distance to her. She pounced on Mercy, and before we blink, she already landed 2 quality slaps on her face. Mercy staggered back, and Amaka said, "I have been expecting you to show up. and thanks for finally showing up. Now, can we start from where we stopped? The difference is that back then, I was the pathetic loser. But right now, there will be a plot twist. You will lose everything, Amaka said meanly, and Mercy looked at her shockingly, still holding her cheek. Hey, African Tales by Camo Tribe. Are you sure you are ready for the next episode? Please like, share, subscribe if you have not. You can please support me by buying me a coffee using the link on my bio or on the description of this video. You can as well buy me a super thanks. Until I bring the next episode of the story, it is a goodbye from here and God bless you.